Good morning, everyone. Ooh, I'm starting to see the numbers really grow now. I see
I
everyone
love
coming
that.
into the
Good
room.
morning, Lauren. How are you today? Oh my
I'm
God, their numbers are jumping. Looks
do
like
you
we won the jackpot this morning. And I think it's because our great guest we're going to introduce in a bit, Lauren. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I know I'm interested in looking in deeper as to what they offer and how they do what they do. So I'm super looking forward to today's show.
Oh my God, Lauren, I think we're going to break a record today. I'm watching these numbers go up and I'm just was wishing that was my bank account going up like that.
Yeesh. You and me both. Good Lord. Well, Lori, I'll jump right in then. Good
Please
morning to
do.
everyone. You just heard myself and my colleague, Lori Williams, just really saying good morning to each other and saying hello to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today for another session of Small Biz Talk, Solutions for Your Small Business. And I'll give you a quick brief, a brief intro as to who we are and what we do. And so, again, my name is Lauren Simpson, and represent the LA Regional SBDC. And the SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations throughout the country. We offer no-cost services to local small businesses. So that means that regardless of where you are in the country, you should be able to get connected with a local SBDC or Small Business Development Center. For the Los Angeles network, which again is the network that I represent, we have all these locations that you see in front of you now. We go as far out as about Camarillo, Santa Clarita, over to Pasadena, down to Long Beach. So regardless of where you are in this area, you are able to get connected with one of our offices. And so here's a deeper dive as to what it is that we offer. No cost business advising. And so you're able to get connected with experts from everything. Well, the guru of numbers here, Miss Lori Williams, to others who specialize in taxes and marketing and business planning, in e-commerce. So again, whatever industry your business might lie in, you can get connected with a business advisor at no cost to you. And then again, we also offer virtual training, so much like the training you are engaged in today. And finally, get in contact with us. We can be reached at 866-588-7232 or online at smallbizla.org/new client. If you're outside of our network, so outside of Los Angeles, you can reach out to americassbdc.org/find your SBDC. With that, Lori, I'm going to stop my screen share, and then I'm going to do quick housekeeping. So for those of you that are on with us today, any questions, please be sure to add those into our Q&A. Again, questions into our Q&A. Lori will be monitoring the Q&A, and so we want to be sure that she's able to see your question. Look to the chat for links that I'll be in resources that I'll be including there. There'll be links that Lori has mentioned, as well as links to our YouTube so that you can see additional videos and recordings of our show. And I guess I wanted to, Lori,
You want to get the share back? You want to get the share back so you can do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, here, let me give you the share back.
Thank you. It'll be very, very quick.
And while you're doing that, Lauren, too, another thing, let's mention where they go. Like, say I've had the situation come up, which I'm very happy for. Somebody's watching our show and they say, I've got a friend, they want to watch it as well. How do they sign up? So where do they find that? Where can they give the friend and say, go here and sign up to watch the show?
Oh, wonderful. So I will be including a link. And so on that link, you'll be able to see, one of the links is going to be to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel has all of our shows, Lori, as well as a link back to the Zoom that everyone is able to register on to attend today. And I'll include that Zoom link as well into our chat.
And we got a landing page now, don't we? That even tells a little bit more about upcoming. Guys, we're getting so official. Oprah's calling us next. We know it. So let's talk about our landing page we now have.
So our landing page, just like Lori mentioned, has all the information related to what this show is and what we provide, as well as upcoming topics. And so we've got it planned out through April, if I'm not mistaken, the first
I'm
part
getting
of
ahead of the game, guys.
That's amazing. And so I'll include that link as well. Lori, I didn't even mention the form. We have a form that everyone can fill out, and that form will allow you to suggest show topics, as well as if you're interested in being a guest on our show. And so you can fill that out. You can also put in questions. So if we aren't able to get to your question today during the show, you can always use that link to send over questions to Lori. And she's really great about getting back. And then, let me talk about what's on the screen right now. And so in front of you, you see that it's SBDC Day coming up. This year's theme is Your Guiding Light. And on March 16th, we are going to have a really great show with Miss Lori Williams, and it's going to speak to SBDC Day. So that is.
And we're going to have another one of the audience appreciation, your questions, your topics. I'll be bringing in things that I think might be important for you to know. But March 16th, SBDC Day, and a special show dedicated to you guys and your questions and topics. So if you have something you want me to cover, get with the link that Lauren's going to show you and go ahead and let me know in advance.
Awesome. Lori, I'm going to pitch it over to you.
Okay, I just want to give everybody a quick look at what's coming up. So next week, we're going to have a couple themes we're going to go through. Next week, we're going to talk to Eric that owns Apparel Product LLC. Eric's really interesting because I think if you ever are to meet one of those spirited entrepreneurs, I always told Eric, whatever happens, he will always find a way to make money. He's just got that incredible spirit of always looking for opportunity. And what's interesting with his company is he designed and sourced it, but he'll tell you stories. I went over here, I was to Vietnam, I was over here, I was all over there. And so he's got a lot of experience of doing international sourcing. Very interesting to learn from. Once again, March 16th, learn from Lori, special audience appreciation. Then March 23rd, we're going to talk to Yvette Preston, and she is the founder and designer with Preston and James. So she's going to tell you a different story about selling into actually her store, etc. And then I'm going to have a special episode starting the end of March, April. I want to focus on, we're kind of at a point where we got to say, okay, the worst is maybe behind us. Let's hope, let's grow our business. So I'm going to have 3 great weeks where we talk about social media, website, marketing strategies. I've got 2 new guests coming on. Plus, we're bringing back our loved Deborah Darris to tell us more about social media. So that's what's going to be happening in the upcoming shows. Now, I want to talk a little about what we're having today. Now, most people on this audience, and many people have had some experience with Airbnb. You stayed at an Airbnb, you thought about staying at an Airbnb. Many people have said, hey, what if we take off on a vacation and rent our house out as an Airbnb? Some people have said, well, what if we get investment in an Airbnb? So no matter what side of the coin you're on, you maybe have thought or engaged or have considered an Airbnb. So what I'm really excited about is bringing our guests, Christine and Skip. They are the owners of Arcadia Desert Vacation Rentals. And this is a boutique company specializing in the management of short-term vacation rentals. I'd like to welcome Christine and Skip to the show. Welcome.
Oh, hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello, and welcome. Okay, so this is what we're going to do, guys. We want to start out by helping our audience have a better understanding of what your company does. Do you own the rentals? Do you manage the rentals? Give us, especially a layman person like me who's only stayed at an Airbnb and is not familiar with the industry, give us the laydown of what your company does.
I do?
Please,
Oh, okay. Well, we basically manage Airbnbs for other people. We don't own the Airbnbs. Now, I just want to say any questions that we answer today is just for our company, because there's many different types of vacation rental managers out there. We focus on the short-term rentals, but if you go out there to hire a management company, what we've discovered is that there are some management companies and a majority of their clients are investors. Some of them are actually real estate agents that are moonlighting as short-term rental managers. And sometimes they're cleaning companies that offer some management, like on-site management services. And then there's other people who they began with managing their own short-term rentals, and then their neighbors reached out to them and say, hey, can you do mine also? So they started managing other people's rentals. For our company, other homeowners hire us to manage their rentals because we'll get into it later, but there's a lot of headaches and hassles that a lot of people don't realize, and we handle all the headaches and hassles so they don't have to.
Got it. You know, I can see where that is a major advantage, because as I talk with people that want to rent out, whether it's their vacation home or their home for an Airbnb, they're very afraid of the aspect that you're handling. And I would assume, just like any business, there is these major, like, this is the right way and this is the wrong way, and you can get in trouble with this, and this is the problems that you experience. So give us a quick rundown. You know, if I was to rent out my home, what would be the challenges that I'd come upon that you've seen that you help other people solve so they don't have to face those?
Well, I guess before we even get into that, one of the first mistakes that people make is that they go off and they get a vacation home, they go off and buy something, or they start renting their own home without doing their homework. So they will, so we had a friend a client, I should say, who said, hey, my friend just bought a vacation rental and do you guys think you can manage it? You know, they'd love to talk to you. And we were like, sure, like, where'd they buy their vacation rental? And I'm not going to mention the town because it doesn't matter. It's just like, so they mentioned the town and we were like, they don't allow vacation rentals in that town.
Oh.
And it was banned, and the person had no idea. I mean, he thought I could just buy this house and I love this place, and he didn't do his homework. So before you even start renting your own home or investing in a home, you have to do your homework, which is you have to call the short-term rental department at the local city hall. You have to find out what the ordinances are. You have to find out what the rules are. For example, just very, very recently, was it Tahoe or just South Lake Tahoe?
Yeah.
Just recently, we have some friends who had a vacation rental up there. They've been renting it for years and years and years. And just recently, the city council banned all short-term vacation rentals except in specific zones. And it's constantly changing. I mean, there's still some other places where it's like the wild, wild west.
Right.
And there's no rules yet, but that's the number one thing that people should do. And an example that we'll give also is that, you know, we are a majority of our rentals, or pretty much all our rentals, are in the greater Palm Springs area. And a lot of people think, oh, Palm Springs, and they kind of put that entire area as one place. But in greater Palm Springs, there's Rancho Mirage, Cathedral City,
Palm Desert,
yeah. Indian Wells, La Quinta, and each one of those cities has their own ordinances and rules about what you are allowed to do and not allowed to do. And then within each city, there's a gated community, and each gated community has rules about, you know, whether or not you can rent it for a short-term rentals, or the minimum is 1 week, or the minimum is 30 days. And even within cities, your building, like if you wanted to rent an apartment within a building, the building itself might have rules. So that's the number one thing that people have to do is like contact City Hall, talk to the local real estate agents, find out what's going on, because you don't want to invest in a vacation rental and then find out that you can't even rent it, you know, and there's even caps in some cities.
Yeah,
like
caps on permits they'll issue.
Or sometimes there'll be it has to be 150 yards between short-term rentals.
X amount of days you can rent it per year. So
so do your homework first.
Yeah.
That's number one
You
thing.
know, that is such a valid point. And once you mentioned it, I can totally understand it, because I travel around quite a lot and I pick up the local newspapers when I'm there. And often I'll see we're going to have a town hall meeting to discuss the future of Airbnbs in our area, and other people are going to discuss issues and stuff. And I've seen that over the last, couple years, that's been more of a hot topic. In my own personal experience, which you guys will correct me if I'm right or wrong on this, it seemed like when Airbnbs first started, they had more free range. And it seems like within the last several years, there's been more stipulations, more concerns in the community. So this might be a question that I'm going to ask that you'll say, I really don't know if there's an answer. It's a luck of the draw. But if I'm investing in a property, is there something I can look at, like maybe less residential or something where it's got a better chance of not changing? Like I check my ordinances, I make sure I'm okay now, but is there any long-term investment in an Airbnb property that I maybe could be aware of going, well, if it's a little close to residential, that may become a problem, or maybe it's a little there. Is there any advice on that from even investing, knowing that the future may change? Now, granted, I got to premise this by saying, I'm asking you and putting you on the spot immediately because I'm saying future guessing here. So audience, know I'm pushing them on a future guessing, but is there an answer to that question?
Yeah. As you had pointed out, one thing we would recommend is the zoning, as you had pointed out. Right now, what we're seeing in a lot of different cities, it's the residential zones, because that seems to be where most of the complaints are coming from full-time residents who don't Airbnb. They all the residential zone seems to be the center of that. But there are different zonings. There's like a tourist commercial zone, or a commercial. I know in one city they'll allow it if it's in a commercial residential. So that way. So yes, I mean, so if you, again, we cannot predict the future, but if there's one thing to look at, it would be the zoning. And
then going back to the example of South Lake Tahoe, the zones that they're allowing are right by the main road. So, and pretty much a majority of our the short-term rentals that we manage, they're in a commercial tourist zone. Right. So that ensures that, if it's, they're usually, when they're making ordinances and rules, it applies to residential areas. So you can still rent in a residential area. It's just that you have to stay on top of what's going on. And, there are some places where there are natural places where people go, to rent and as a resort, like ski resort areas, mountain areas, desert areas. So it's less likely there's going to be, any stringent rules and stuff. But if you're going in the middle of, suburbia and you're just rent there, that's when you might run into issues with your neighbors.
Right.
That makes complete sense, because they don't usually change, if very seldom, zoning overnight, right? But they can take a residential that you're pushing into a commercial world by the Airbnb and make restrictions on that. I'm asking you all these trick questions, but they're coming to mind. Do they look at whether somebody is fully an investor in the property versus their Airbnb or renting out their primary home? Do they determine them different, or whether or not it's my primary home and I'm going to rent it out on a weekend, or I don't own it, it's a pure investment and I'm renting it full time? Does that situation create, and I'm just going to make it very generic, guys, any different rules on anything?
Yeah.
Well, again, when you say they, I'm assuming you mean the city council.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on the city. Like there are some towns where, again, it's the wild, wild west, and they go, hey, just bring the money in. We love the tourism. We love the TOT. Let's bring people into our town. And there's other towns who they will only allow you to rent if it's your primary residence, that if you live there, 6 months out of the year.
Interesting.
Sometimes it's a combination. Now, in terms of whether they allow an investor or a private person, I'm not sure if I've seen any actual regulations regarding that. It has more to do with, if you're buying it as a vacation rental investment, because there are regular people who, like you and me, who they will buy a vacation rental, but they won't put it under their name. They'll put it under a business name, or they'll put it under a trust, or they'll put it under their own name. It's really their own choice. Right.
So if I said, okay, guys, I looked at a zoning and I found a zoning that I feel pretty comfortable and I want to buy this. Ready for this one? And I said, okay, I got one vacation rental and I'm going to be rich and quit my full-time job now. Okay. And you manage it, and I'm going to go to the beach because I have an Airbnb now. I shouldn't have to work anymore. Will you ruin my little dream on that? What will you tell me?
Do you mind? I'm so sorry.
No,
like I have to preempt it. Like I'm from New York, and Skip is from the South, and so we have two different ways of talking. And I'm the one who goes, and he's more of the guy who's like, he can answer the questions like very like solidly and whatever. So so I'm gonna leave him the stuff to answer like the good solid questions, and I'm gonna be the one all excited talking. But we're both talking. But okay, so what drives me crazy is when I see these TikTok videos and these other people saying, I made 6 figures, like with my vacation rentals. Like I made $500,000 off my vacation rentals. And a lot of people are lured by that. You know, they think that they'll buy a property, they'll put it on Airbnb, and it's just gonna like spill out money like a slot machine. Like, and it doesn't work like that. When you get a vacation rental, you're basically running a small business. And just like, and I'm taking a cue from you, Lori, you have to like account for cost of goods. You have to account for your fixed costs, and you have to account for your variable costs. And then there's a lot of sweat equity that goes into it. You don't just, it doesn't run itself. You have to refill like the basic things like paper towels and toilet paper. Like someone has to clean it. Someone has to make sure that it's prepped for the next guest. And so I'm going to share a story that happened, and this is why we like working with people before they even buy a vacation rental, because they come in with these numbers in their head thinking, I'm going to buy a vacation rental and I'm going to retire, or I'm going to buy 2 or 3, and it doesn't necessarily look. So I'm going to, again, taking a cue from you,
please do. This is exactly where I wanted to go. So give us some understanding, create some reality. You know me, I'm always trying to create reality. So keep going.
Here's the reality is that, for example, we had a client that we worked with, and she was told, she heard rumors that if she bought this specific vacation rental, and I'm gonna choose a small number just so it's easy. And she was told, you're gonna make $1,000 a year, like more than enough for you to live on. And she was like, I'm gonna quit my job and retire and travel around the world because I'm gonna make $1,000 a year. And I'm so happy. And your like number of zeros may vary. Okay. So she went in and she got the place, and she was so excited, and she hires us, and she's like, make me $1,000 a year. And we were like, you didn't do your homework, did you? And like, you know, we tried to do the best for her, but what she didn't realize is when people say that, they're saying what their gross is. That's the gross.
Yep.
It's not the net.
Oh, I love you for saying that. I love you for saying that. It's not how much you make, it's how much you have at the end. Thank you. Keep going.
So what we always tell people when they say, hey, I'm thinking about getting a vacation rental, what do you think? And we always say, make sure you crunch your numbers. Do what Lori says, crunch your numbers. Because you're going to have monthly costs. You're going to, like, if you're not doing a 1031 exchange, or if you're not buying it all out with cash, you're going to have your mortgage. You're going to have to pay, you're going to have property taxes. You're going to have
your
HOA fees. Home insurance, you're paying for utilities. You know, if you choose to get a home warranty, you're paying for your home warranty.
Most cities are requiring a permit now, and some of them are pretty expensive. So, you know,
one of the cities we work in, it's like $1,000 a year.
Yeah, one town that we worked in, they just upped it up to I think $1,500 a year just for the permit, just to rent your property
annually.
Yeah, and then the business license. So you have to check with the city on that,
right?
And then after that's like the upfront, like what you have to do, right? And then there's the stuff, there's the wear and tear, you know, there's, you know, pool. If you have a pool, you have to have a pool guy.
For your pool guy,
landscape,
your gardeners,
you know, pest control. That's a big one.
One other thing, again, having to do your research. We have a friend. Lots of us. We have a friend, and she got a vacation rental in a mountain town. And she was so excited, bought it, you know, and it was, everything was taken care of. And then she finds out that they don't do trash pickup in her area. And so anytime, and the thing is, unless you're going to pay a heck of a lot of money for a private person to pick up your trash, anytime they stayed there or they had a guest stay there, someone would have to take the trash and put it in the trunk of their car and drive it to the dump. So again, doing your, you want to do your research, because it was such a, the trash fee was so high that they just decided not to rent it out, and they just let friends and family use it. Yeah. Just on that one thing. So again,
interesting.
But yeah, in terms of wear and tear, again, we've noticed that when people think they're going to buy a vacation rental, it's like a dollhouse. Like you buy it and it's set, and then the money's just going to come in. But that's not what happens. Like you mentioned there's wear and tear. So wear and tear is, the best way I can describe it is like, imagine you're having all your family over for the holidays and they're staying there for a week in your house. That's a lot. I know it's a long time, maybe a few days I can handle. So your family goes through your house and they leave and you're like, like, what have they done to my house? Well, that's what happens when guests go through. It's just like, and you're having guests coming over every single weekend. So plates are gonna break.
So it's basically Thanksgiving every weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
In terms of the
towels
wear
are
and tear.
gonna disappear, bedding is gonna wear, you know, you're probably gonna have to keep up with your HVAC servicing. You have pest control, you have to pay for pest control. And you know what we've noticed, because there's a lot of people going through, you know, it's not just like, you and your spouse and a couple kids. It's like sometimes you'll have like 6 or 8 people going through there and it's their vacation.
Yeah.
So what we've noticed is like on vacations, and that's why we always tell our owners, get really sturdy furniture, because the kids aren't allowed to jump on the bed at home, but they can jump on the bed at the hotel or in the Airbnb. The kids are, I can't tell you how many times, we get a call from a guest, asking for us to come by and check out something, and we go there and the kids are playing like the floor is lava. And it's going to happen. That's just what it is. And that's why we say, don't get nice furniture, get sturdy furniture. But I'm kind of going off on a tangent now, but you just have to be ready for that. And also on top of that, again, the $1,000 that our client was thinking about, if you hire a management company, the management company, we get a commission, and then the management company also has fees. So those are all the things you have to be aware of. So basically at the end of the year, instead of having $1,000, she was making less than half of that. And if there was a major fix that she had, she was maybe only making $300 or $400. And a large chunk of it was because she was paying a mortgage on top of that. So, and another dangerous thing that people tend to do is that they say, I'm going to buy a vacation rental and the rentals will pay for my mortgage. And as you can see, what happened with the pandemic, it didn't, we've heard of many homeowners who they were relying on the income to pay for the mortgage. And then suddenly everyone had to cancel their reservations because of the pandemic. And suddenly they had no income to pay for their mortgage and they had to sell their place. So, people say that vacation rentals are investments. And I think the mistake is that in the before times, the vacation rental is where you park your money. And you parked your money there in hopes that the real estate would rise, and then you could sell it later on down the line. And then you would rent it just to help cover the cost and have a little extra money on the side. But the reality is that, people think that they buy this and it's just this cash cow. And you might find, that one property that's like that, but for majority of the properties, it's an investment, it's a business, there's money going in and out. And there's, you have to be aware of your fixed costs and your variable costs. Variable costs is like the basics.
Basic, yeah. Supplies.
Dish, laundry, soap, supplies.
Yeah.
My only experience close to this, and this was a good couple decades ago, but I moved from one state to another and I owned a house and I wasn't ready to give that house up, right? So I had a situation where a friend's daughter moved into the house and, that was like, oh, great. Okay, I got a tenant. Well, they moved out, then I got a management company and I got other tenants and I had it for a couple of years and I found that I barely paid the mortgage because I would get calls like, oh, by the way, the fence is broke. Oh, by the way, the air conditioner. In essence, I was able to keep it long and then sell it and it was good in that aspect, but it was a nightmare. In no way did I make the kind of money that I anticipated making. But in my situation, for the most part, I could keep somebody in all year round because these were people who were actually renting the house. But I have to believe, going back to the revenue sales side, if you're talking like the mountain home, I got to believe they're not totally renting it in the worst of the winter. So there's got to be a seasonal aspect to them even identifying how much sales. And my guess is that most people overestimate the amount of time it will actually be rented and have somebody physically in than is in. So I'm going to throw that to you to take off from there.
Do you want to talk about seasons?
Sure. So yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. And for instance, that's especially true where our business is in the desert. I mean, it's very seasonal in terms of peak weather, which is for us, it's from January to April, and then different. In fact, I would say that's most locations. I mean, you have some places like Hawaii where it's nice all year round, pretty much. There's some, even then,
San Diego.
but even then they have some sort of shoulder, season where it's not rented as much. So you have to take that into account.
Yeah, and weather is a huge thing. You have your mountain town, but what happens in a major snowstorm? And we'll get into it later when you're actually renting it. But what happens is if there's a snowstorm and your renters can't get up there, do you give them a refund? Do you give them a credit? Do you say too bad, too sad? And we believe that you should treat people the way you want to be treated. So we'll give credits or try to work something out. But for us, it's not just the seasons and the off seasons, but it's also the weather. Like if we have a very mild summer, we'll have more families coming out to desert. But if it's 120 degrees out, not as many people coming out. One of our major booking months is for Coachella and Stagecoach. And even then, the amount that we can make off that month depends on the lineup. So, there was this one year, and it was called Baychella when Beyonce was there. And as soon as they announced the lineup, we had like the highest rates we had ever asked for, and we sold out like in a day or two. And then there was another year where I won't mention the person headlining, but we could not sell anything. It was literally, we usually sell out months in advance. It was literally just a few weeks, and we still had availability. Yeah. And it was just because the lineup wasn't that great. So, you have to realize that when you have a vacation rental, a lot of it relies on the weather. A lot of it relies on events, and whether or not the event is successful, or if it's a concert, if they have a good lineup. So you have to understand that you can't expect that. Another thing that people new to the vacation rental industry do is they go, how much can I get per night? How much does the place get per night? Right. And they go, oh, okay, so my place can get $200 per night. Oh, there's 365 days a year. That's this much money.
Yeah. And
it doesn't work that way. Most of the time, you're going to be booking just on the weekends. You might get some midweekers, and the rate is going to change depending on the time of the year.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of listings where, and these are probably beginner, it'll be the same price
throughout the whole year.
Right.
And what happens? You miss out because, like, if let's say you're trying to book during the off season, the rate for your place is going to be so much higher than everybody else's. So you're going to miss booking people during the off season. You can have lower rates. And then if you have your equivalent of the big event, the large event, the holiday, everyone else is going to bring the prices up and yours is going to be down here. So you're going to miss out on what you could make. So what we do is dynamic pricing. Like, he's always keeping track of like how other rentals are doing, how we're doing, the events are going on, and we will adjust the pricing like practically accordingly, like very often is all I can say, to match with what's available on the market, or I should reflect.
This goes back to the advantage of having a management team, because it's just like a stock portfolio. If you just, kind of put the money in and then just say it's set up, I'm just going to let it run, there becomes questions on the ebbs and flows of the market. And I was actually thinking right before you said that you're aggressively watching the market and changing accordingly, that you must be having to constantly look at the competitors, what's happening, what's coming up in the area, because I can see it where if you are not able to have this space occupied 365 days a year, which most wouldn't, just missing out on an opportunity of not having a high enough price or having it too high and not having it rented could be severe to your overall earnings. But another thing I'm taking away from this is anybody who plans to go this route has to have some definite cash flow, that if they have a repair, if they have where somebody doesn't rent, how people stretch themselves to the max, get the rental property, and then they're in, and then they think, okay, now it'll start paying. If you don't have the cash to manage it, just like any other business, you could end up in a pickle, not being able to repair something and not being able to rent it out.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to, super leverage yourself out at all. I mean, that's a huge risk.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people, again, most of our clients are those who either they love the desert and they want to have a place out there, and renting it out helps them afford to have a place out there, or they have money, they're diversifying their portfolio, and property is just part of their portfolio, and they're the type of clients who they're too busy doing their other jobs, like they're lawyers, or they have another career, but they want another source of income on top of that, or they just want to have that investment, but they just don't have the time to deal with managing a rental. And it is a lot more work than people think. Again, you're not just setting up an Airbnb ad and just like letting it go. You're getting a lot of phone calls, you're getting a lot of inquiries.
Right.
Even if we don't have 9 to 5 jobs, and we make up our own hours, we're on call 24/7, because you just never know when someone oh, I locked myself out, or, I can't, our biggest call is people, there's not everyone knows how to use a smart TV. A lot of our clients are, of a generation where they're not used to that, and they were like, how can I change the channel? And so, we have like little, instructional things, but not everyone reads the instructions. So I
never thought about that. You're right. It could be even those, how do I make the stove work? How do I program the microwave nonstop? Yeah. And a lot of times what happens is, in my day-to-day consulting, I have people that either have a rental, or they're thinking of getting a rental, or they just basically had property that they inherited and they're renting. And one of the things, and guys, if you could speak to this, when I ask them, are they actually making money, the net income, they tell me, well, this is what we're getting per rent. And I said, well, what about all of the expenses? Are you calculating the expenses? Are you keeping track of them? And they'll say, oh, we just pay them on the credit card. And I'll be like, but are you taking those numbers and looking them at in a relationship to the rent you're getting? And they're not. And so even one of our people today on our question is asking, I'm new to renting. What do you suggest as far as just managing and keeping track of the expenses? Do you have any advice that you can give to them? You know me, I'm always an Excel document, just writing down all the expenses is the least you need to do. But I want to ask you guys, and also tell us, as a management company, do you help the people who own the property know what the expenses are and manage the expenses? So this question is all around managing the expenses, including what you guys do for people that don't manage the expenses. Take it from there.
Well, what Skip does is that he keeps track of obviously every single rental, but he also keeps track of every single expense. So, for example, we noticed that we should get a couple new pool towels. We'll purchase it if the owner can get it themselves, or we purchase it for the owner. If we needed to fix the washer or dryer and have the repairman come in, he will write that all down. At the end of each month, we send our clients a monthly statement that it has all the receipts, all the expenses, and their income, and we also take out our commission and any other fees. And so they get that each month, and at the end of the year they get a full statement. So that's another service that management company can provide, so that if you're doing it yourself, you have to track everything yourself. And then again, I think most people report it as a 1099. I don't know. I don't want to get into taxes because we do more of the management things, but you need to have all of that, because again, when you have a vacation rental, you're running a small business, and you want to have all of that so you can hand it off to your tax guy to figure out what to do.
In fact, while we're speaking of taxes, I want to let everybody know what I did is I collected, and Lauren's going to put this in the chat. This is probably a good time. I went on the IRS website and researched some actual pages, easy to read. It's more of IRS commentary, so it's easier to read than the IRS language. And I've got 4 links, I think it is, that Lauren's going to put in, and it will tell what can be deducted, whether you should have a Schedule C or a Schedule S, and, just a basic overall from the IRS tax perspective. And I knew people were going to have different questions, but it's such a specific conversation. I didn't want to get engaged in it here, but as always, guys, I didn't want you to go without resources. So Lauren, go ahead and throw those in the chat right now, since we're on the topic of it, and then they can have it available. Now, I would assume that just like getting an investment property and I need to do the research ahead of time, I bet you if I choose to have a management company, which to me, it sounds like I could have more control over my property if I did. I know I don't want to be woke up in the middle of the night and asked about the microwave, but I would assume that I should do some research, because this is a gut, guys, you tell me if I'm correct. I bet you many people jump in and call themselves a management company, but they're really not as qualified. Because I know when I had my property going back years ago, I first had the real estate agent that sold me manage it. And then he says, no, Lori, I don't want to do it anymore. And I went through situations where I had somebody that was supposed to be an official management that told me 4 months later the people moved out when I kept asking where the rent check was every month, So I've had my own scares. So tell us, because I know some people are going to say, I want to have this investment, but I don't want to manage it. And what should I look for in a management company? So guys, take it from there and tell us how you're different from others as well. Please do speak on that.
We've heard so many horror stories from homeowners that came to us, and one I mean, I don't want to scare people with horror stories. Thankfully, they're rare. But we had one woman come to us, and she had hired this management company, and it turns out it was just this person, and this person never rented it out and just lived in the proproperty. And it was like, and it was a beach property. It was like right on the water. And then the neighbors would call and be like, your manager is like
sunbathing on the roof,
on your deck. Like, what's going on? We've heard horror stories where the management company, they would use the house as their party house. Like, right. It's our birthday. Well, let's use the house. Like, they'll never know. And we've heard horror stories of like management companies who they say, oh, we only take this much commission, but then they the way they calculate the commission is kind of like sneaky, or they start tacking on all these fees that they never mentioned before. And with us, we only have a flat fee. We only take our commission from the room rate, which is what you're supposed to do. And I'll give you an example for this, because like what'll happen sometimes is that we'll have a potential client say, what's your commission? And we'll tell them what our commission is. And they'll say, well, these people over there, they're going to be doing it for less. But what we discovered, and again, this is what homeowners have told us, is that, so let's say you rent a place out and it's $200 a night. I'm just going to pick out that number out of the air to rent. But the thing is, let's say the person stays there for 3 nights. It would be $600 for the room rate, but then there's the cleaning fee, there's TOT, there's, and then whatever fees that might be charged by
TOT is what?
Transient occupancy tax.
Gotcha. I thought that's what that was, but I wanted to make sure. So that's a tax that the local area puts on a rental when they consider it transient. RV parks have the same thing, the transient occupancy tax.
And that's actually, transient occupancy tax is a good sign, because if a city has it, it means they've come to rely on that tax to support the operation.
Good point.
The thing is, they want that income coming in. Right. So they welcome vacation rentals because it's more TOT for them.
That's a good point, Lauren. Make sure to get that in the chat. I love that point, because you're right. Governments never want to forego tax money they've been getting.
So, but what'll happen is that, we will only take commission from the $600, but then we learned that there was another management company where, there was the cleaning fee, this and that, but then they charged the resort fee, which we were like, what? And they charged like some other fee. And what they did is that by the time they took the commission out and then pulled out their other fees, the owners were actually getting less money. And the management company was actually making more money than the homeowners, which we feel is wrong. I mean, it's your home. Yeah. Right. And you're allowing us to manage your home, which we already feel is a great honor, because you're trusting us with your home. And then to try to, be sneaky about that. We just think it's wrong. But you have to ask them, okay, if that's your commission, like, what are you taking it from the room rate, or are you taking it from the booking rate? Because the booking rate can be a lot higher than the actual room rate.
I can see that, yeah. Now, when it comes time for promoting, obviously the more promotion you have on the property, the more chance of renting it. So this is a two-pronged question, guys. Who handles that? Does the management company handle that, or is that still on me? And what do I need to consider? What works, what doesn't work? I'm just going to say that whole ball of wax of making sure it's out there and being promoted. Tell us about that.
Really? Okay. Well, obviously you're going to set your place up on, we always people sometimes ask, should we do Airbnb or VRBO, Vrbo? And we say do both, because they both attract different types of clientele. Like Airbnb tends to be younger and savvier. VRBO tends to be more traditional and older. And you will get inquiries from both. And why not double your appearance online?
Yeah, right.
Having a website, helps, because it gives you presence. And, of course, from a guest perspective, guests have been screwed over by, fake rentals as well,
Yeah.
where, they'll rent a place, but it turns out it doesn't even belong to the person who's renting it.
Yeah.
So, if you have presence online, then they go, okay, these are people we can trust, I can call them, and I know
Right.
that they're not trying, it's not a Craigslist ad, I guess.
It's like having a business card.
Yeah, it's like having a business card.
Legitimacy.
Yeah. And in terms of marketing, you and it's another reason why you want to hire a management company. When you're first starting out with an Airbnb or VRBO, you're going to have 0 reviews. You're going to have 0 history. And it's going to take a while, it's the ramp up period for people to trust, because like, oh, no one stayed there. I don't know if it's good. Like, I don't, and you know what, I'm going to go to this place that has a bunch of 5-star reviews rather than this place that only has.
I would do the same thing.
Yeah. But when you hire a management company, we have like a special status because we do so many bookings. And because we already have that status, even if you have 0 reviews, it's more likely that your ad for your property will appear higher up in the search. So we've all gone on, Airbnb or Vrbo, and you're like, okay, I want to stay here with this many bedrooms. And then the list will come up and it's like 10 properties. And then maybe you'll go to the second page, maybe you'll go to the third page. By the time you hit the 4th or 5th page, you're kind of like, I'm done looking. It's all beginning to look the same to me. So the key thing is you want to be in the first, 3 pages, or best is to be on the first page. You're less likely to be on the first 3 pages if you have 0 reviews and 0 history in Airbnb. And a management company would have a lot of history. So it's more likely that your listing will already be in the first 3 pages. And also with a management company, we will sometimes get people who call and say, we actually were booking for our family. We need 2 or 3 units. Can you give us 2 or 3 units that are close to each other? Or they'll say, oh, I can't find anything else. Do you guys have any openings coming up, or let me know if there's a cancellation? So because people know that we have an inventory instead of just one place, they know they can come to us. And if we have we have a new property actually that's going to be coming up this week, we can, steer people towards that property to say, hey, this property is brand new and they just redid the place. And, sometimes people will want to book something, but it's totally wrong for them. They'll say, oh, we have this and we have these needs. And we go, you know what? You actually don't want to stay there. We have a place that actually will fit your needs better. So when you're part of an inventory, it's also more likely that you're going to get booked.
That makes sense, because somebody could benefit in your inventory from others in your inventory when, like you said, they're booked and they can't, and then they transfer to this one and they transfer to that one. I can see where that totally makes sense with, an advantage there. You guys may not know the answer to this one, but possibly can advise on it. I have had people talk to me about Airbnb when they have the contract, and I'm not knowledgeable at all, so bear with me on the question. But I guess part of it, they offer a certain insurance if things go really bad, like the wild party happens at your house. That's the big concern. And I have asked people when they were thinking about whether incorporating or not, just to double check on your end to make sure you're fully insured and covered for situations. And often they'll say Airbnb covers me fully. Now it may or may not, but I tend to be more, I doubt it. That's always my thing, because when you get an insurance tacked into a service, it's usually the basic insurance that covers the minimal things. So just to the insurance requirements, whatever knowledge you could share with the audience, would you please?
Oh, well, as it's a home, you'll definitely want to get a homeowner's insurance, which you're sort of required to do that when you purchase a home. So, but in addition to that, if you do plan to rent it short term, there are now, because it becomes so ubiquitous, you can now get short-term rental specific insurance. And we highly recommend that, because if something were to happen in your home and you don't have that specifically, the insurance company can turn around and say, we didn't know this was a short-term rental, so we're not going to cover this. But if you get that specific short-term rental insurance, and that's to cover your house for 365, 24/7, because a lot of these insurance policies that Airbnb offers and VRBO, you can get a property damage protection under that. It covers just the days that the guests are in there. And as you say, it's sort of a basic, insurance, you just, the whole point of insurance is you don't want something to happen and not be covered. So
Right.
you just want to make sure all your
Right.
bases are covered.
And
So
with the Airbnb, it's like they say that they'll cover up to $1 million, but it's really just like if a lamp breaks, or if they if a chair breaks and you need to replace it or get it repaired.
yeah,
And
and maybe if someone knocks a hole in the wall, it'll cover that.
yeah,
which-
yeah. But what I do want to say is that is one of the biggest fears that people have about having a vacation rental. Is like, oh, the damage. What if they damage the place? What if they ruin the place? And there's
Yeah.
the two main things is you can take preemptive measures to do that. And one is to vet your guests. Like, don't just let anyone use your
Right.
place. Like, whenever we get an inquiry, Skip will call them and say, hey, like, what are you guys coming over for? Is it a wedding or this and that? And we'll just check to make sure that they're professional people or good people. And the other thing is you want to avoid, if you can, and some people they're okay with doing 1-night bookings or 2-night bookings, but those are usually the people who are going to come party. If you want to protect your home and you have nicer things, extend the minimum, have a 3-night minimum, or a 4-night minimum, because that'll bring more of the families and the people who are actually looking for a place to stay instead of a place to party. And but honestly, the damage is so rare. I mean, he's been doing this, we've been doing this for years and years and years, and we can probably just count on like a couple hands how often there was like damage.
And it's usually the Airbnb and VRBO's policies
Yeah.
do cover just that we haven't really had a major issue.
Yeah, and
with that.
it's really like, it's honestly not as big of a deal as everyone seems to worry about. I think once in the entire time, and we do like thousands and thousands and thousands of rentals. Like, once we had a guy who was having way too much fun and actually punched a hole in the wall. And the next day we just filed a claim, and we had the repairman came out, and it was fixed in 24 hours. It was like not a big deal at all.
Right.
We have a lot of, again, I mentioned Coachella. We have a lot of homeowners who say, oh, Coachella, I'm so scared they're going to party and ruin my place. And honestly, Coachella guests are the best guests we ever have, because they spend the entire time at the concerts, and they come back home and they fall asleep.
They're too tired.
Yeah, they're too tired and they're too drunk, and they just pass out and they go to sleep. The next morning they get up and they go to the concerts again. So I'd say like 99% of the people who come and stay in Airbnbs are very respectful.
Yeah.
They're good people. And then like the 1% that might try to be party people, there's you can always file with Airbnb, you can always file insurance. It's not as scary as people
Gotcha.
tend to make it. I
Right.
mean,
Now,
it's
I know that we keep using the term short-term rental. Is there a nomenclature? Is there, like, if I rent my property over a certain amount of time, is it not then considered short-term? How does that work?
Well, yes, there's a state law for what. So if you're, I think this California state law, if I'm correct, I think it's 30 days and under, you're an occupant. 30 days and over, you're a tenant.
Gotcha.
And,
29
but
days.
but then each municipality will have their own rules. Like
Their own
in
definition.
La Quinta, where a lot of our rentals are, it's 29 nights. And then I believe, I remember in Palm Desert, it was 27 nights. So 30 is kind of, you can't have it longer than 30 for short term, but you can go under.
Gotcha. And am I not correct that once you get over that 30, then they become under a whole new set of rules where eviction is an issue and you have to have certain dates that you have to allow, and that's where you lose I guess if I looked at it from the person owning the property, you lose some rights. That's when you're getting into a little bit more legalities. Is that correct?
That's correct. It falls under tenancy law and real
Yeah.
estate law at that point.
Yeah.
And so they would have tenants' rights. And so that's something you really need to keep an eye on. In fact, I guess, yeah, we've had one friend who did have an issue with that. I don't know if I want to scare the, the guest that stayed, and she asked to stay one day.
Oh yeah. Oh, you know
Yeah.
what? I actually really want to stress this.
Yeah.
We will tell that story, but I just a quick thing about things to watch out for if you decide to do short
Please
rentals.
do.
There's there's some people out there who are not good people, and they will try to scam you as you as a host. And one of the things that people will do is that they'll rent your place and they'll say, hey, can we stay an extra day? I just want to stay an extra day or two. Like, I'll just leave $60 on the table, and pay you in cash, or I'll just, send you the money through Venmo or whatever. And we don't need to go through Airbnb or VRBO. It's not a big deal. Let's just, let's just do that. And then you come to your place and whatever, it's trashed, or there's whatever drama.
Right.
So you try to make a claim with Airbnb and VRBO, and they go, wait a minute, you did a transaction outside of this transaction that invalidates everything.
The insurance, yeah.
That
I was
invalidates
gonna say insurance.
Yeah.
That invalidates the stay. You are no longer under our protection because that transaction happened outside of Airbnb.
And both VRBO and Airbnb offer mechanisms to extend a stay.
Right. So if
there's-
someone wants to stay an extra day, you go, great, send me a message through Airbnb and we'll do it through Airbnb. We'll do it through VRBO.
Do it through the proper channels.
Yeah, do it through the proper channels.
That's such a good advice, because even in general business, I see people try to circumvent certain things thinking, oh, well, I won't pay that little fee and this. And then I say, no, your entire safety structure is set up. The minute you go outside the safety structure, you are subjecting yourself to whatever happens. And so that's a very good point to share, because I can see in a second people going that route. So as we come to a close, I'm going to make you look at your crystal ball again. I would add that there is some questions about Airbnbs in certain areas when people get, concerned about it. What do you see the future of the short-term rentals and vacation industry? Do you see it increasing, decreasing? You're the experts in it. Plus, I'm going to add on any last bit advice, wisdom, or information that you want to share. Take it from there, guys.
Well, I guess one outlook would be it's growing in popularity. More and more people are looking into it. As you were saying earlier in the podcast, I'd like to think it was us, but your guest count broke the record, because I think so many people are interested in this field, and it's intriguing, and it is a good way to make money, if you do it the right way and take care of your property. But I would say it's also starting to draw a lot of
investors.
Like investment firms are starting to look into it as well. So
what we've noticed is that there's a lot of what I call national real estate investment firms who are like looking to buy inventory and have it managed from within their own system.
Right.
That's interesting, because that's completely different than how the whole concept started. It started as an individual, and now we're getting it back into a corporate. I guess follow the money flows, guys. This suggests there's money in it, that's happening. Keep going. Yeah.
It actually might create opportunities for people who want to get into it, because the biggest pain, like there are other investment companies, I call it the before times, is before COVID, who they bought up a bunch of inventory and they had an app, or they had like some flashy marketing, But then what they didn't realize is how much work it was, like on the ground, boots on the ground work to manage a rental. You know, you have to manage the cleanings, you're in and out of the property itself. So their biggest business pain was the actual on-site operations, and they haven't really figured that out yet. But what it seems to be is that it looks like they're going to be investors are going to come in and pick up some inventory, and they're going to need on-site managers to manage the properties. So it might be, if someone wants to like learn while doing, they can go in there and work as an on-site manager, and then they can even get to know an area and stuff. And we're not too worried about these investors coming in, and we're considered what's called a small manager, because we're a boutique, and we curate and limit the amount of properties we manage, because we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. But it might be a good way for people to learn about a certain area. Like, let's say I've always wanted to live in this area or this resort area. I can work as a manager for these others. But then there's always going to be homeowners who want the boutique managers. There's going to be homeowners who want to be able to call, like when homeowners call us, they know they're going to get skipped. They're not going to get a receptionist. They're not going to get a calling center. They're not going to be sent to different departments. And, you know, we had one homeowner who said, like, the previous management company we had was this giant leasing company, and anytime I called, it was like calling the cable company. Like, I was on the phone for 40 minutes and I couldn't get things resolved. Well, with us, the homeowners know, they call us, they get us, and we can take care of it immediately. So there's always going to be a market for that. So I'd say for those who want to learn, that might be a good way to sort of like get your feet wet and see if it's even something you want to do.
Right.
And it also help with those who might want to learn, if they want to manage it themselves, manage their own properties.
Right.
They can learn by doing that, and then manage their own properties.
And I would say the other side of the coin as well, while it's popular, it does look like local, state, and municipality governments are deciding how to regulate it. So that's sort of the wild card in on this. All this is how it's going to be regulated. So that's just something to keep an eye on as well.
It sounds like, you know, in summary, it sounds like it is a lucrative business to get into, but just like every single business, you really have to take in consideration all of the outside factors, from government regulations to taxes to permits to expenses. You can't just get into it saying, I got a piece of property and I'm going to put it on Airbnb and it's going to work out beautifully. So it sounds as though it's a very lucrative opportunity. And it also sounds as though what we're seeing is more people are investing in property. There's maybe more openings for people that want to get into the management of property. So it's just like everything. You've got to know the numbers. You know me, you got to know the numbers. You've got to do the forecast. You've got to rely on expertise. And it really makes sense to do your planning ahead of time. And those fancy fantasy fables, I'm going to start my own company and take time off all the time, I'm going to own one piece of property and make millions of dollars, those are the things that get people in trouble. And that's where it's problematic. Well, it's very interesting, and only time will tell. I think you're absolutely correct how they are going to regulate it in the future. But I love, like you pointed out, if they're getting those transient taxes, chances are they would go to the public and say, no, guys, this is good for you. We're getting taxes for schools or something, rather than, you know, remove it. So there, as every single threat that's happening in an industry, there's different things that you can identify. Well, I can't thank you guys enough. I mean, I've learned a lot about owning Airbnb rentals and hiring a management company, and even my own experience. The people I hired were real estate agents, so I paid so little. I didn't have the focus of just being with a management company like you guys have. So you've really broadened my horizons, and, you know, who knows, maybe someday I'll be buying a piece of property in some vacation place and calling you guys and saying, please manage my property, because I know one thing, I don't want to do any of those things that you mentioned has to be done. I don't want to take out the trash. I don't want to be able to tell them how to use their smart TV. So I would be out of that completely. So Lauren, I'm going to bring you back on, and I want to thank Christine and Skip. This has been really interesting, and I think for some people that are on the edge, they're going to go with much more information on how to go about it. Some people involved in it, maybe they have some more thoughts on how to do it better. And Lauren, I'm assuming you put the information for Skip and Christine, because there may be some people out there that said, I'm tired of doing this myself. I want them to manage my property. So we want to make sure they're available too. So a big thank you to both of you again for sharing all this information. Back to you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lori. Skip, Christine, what a great show. So much information, digestible information at that. The chat is going crazy. Everyone is so grateful. From Ruth and Tova and Donna just saying, thank you so much. Thank you for the meeting. Very interesting.
Oh, it sure is. Lauren's telling you the truth, guys. I just looked at the chat. We've got tons of thank yous and great information and really appreciate this. You guys did good. You gave the audience what they came for. Go on,
Yes.
Lauren.
So thank you to our audience. If you submitted a question, please send me an email with your question. We want to be sure we get back to you. Again, my email is lsimpson@lbcc.edu. I will put that into the chat as well.
And on that, Lauren, I'll mention most of the questions I intertwined within the actual discussion. So you'll see a couple of the questions here. One in specific was more on long-term rentals with the eviction. If they need to know more, please get in touch with me and we'll talk about that. But for the most part, I think I got them answered. And also, I'm pretty caught up in all those of you who have contacted Lauren in the past. I've sent some emails out to people who want appointments that I haven't heard back. So if you're somebody that says, Lori didn't get back to me, shout back at us. You may have not gotten my email, because right now I should have a clean slate on touching base with everybody that wanted to reach out to me. Lauren?
Oh, perfect. That's great information. So again, for those of you, for the question related to evictions, please go ahead. Jennifer, that was you, I believe. Send me an email so that I can get that over to Lori. And then if there are additional questions that haven't even been listed into our Q&A, be sure to reach out to us. I did share both Skip and Christine's information. I see that someone's even looking for just some advice and some mentorship. So again, I listed you all. I put in your website as well as your 800 number, and then of course your Facebook handle. So you guys, our audience, you guys can reach them there.
And can I put one more thing in? We've got someone, I know I promised a food truck. Yes, the food truck's coming. Don't despair. Hang with us. I can't remember the date, but I think it's sometime like May 4th, if I'm not mistaken. I've got an expert on food trucks coming to share everything. So I just saw that pop up. I know I promised a food truck. It's coming, guys. Just hang in there. We're going to get into food trucks. Back to you, Lauren.
I was just going to say, and for those of you who have additional topics, be sure to reach out to us. Just fill out our form, send over your questions, but send over your show topics too, because we're always interested in hearing what would be of interest to you.
We got a big network in the SBDC, guys. So you tell us something, we can reach out, we can find out different people who've been involved in it. I probably have consulted with multi-thousands of people over my 10-year tenure with SBDC. So a lot of these, just like Christine and Skip and the other audience, I've met with personally. But if I don't know somebody in that space, we will find somebody in that space. So this show's about you guys. Even though I'm waiting for my Oprah call, okay, it's about you guys.
I'm waiting on that call too. I want to go to the favorite thing show. So if that ever comes back. To those of you who joined us today, thank you so much. Christine and Skip, again, thank you for taking the time and joining us today. It was a great show. Such amazing information. Thank you. And then Lori, I will see you again next Wednesday at 10 a.m.
You sure will. Till next week. See everybody. Thanks again, guys. So good to see you. Appreciate your help and time today. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'm going to hang back a bit so that you guys can get my email address. It's in the chat. It's that lsimpson@lbcc.edu. And then I've also listed our YouTube so that you can check out our previous recordings. And I've also listed our form. So please be sure to fill out that form and get your questions, show topics. And if you'd like to be a guest, go ahead and get that filled out for us. Thank you. All right, see you next Wednesday. Thank you.